Hey there guys, we're taking a look at Warzone 2 running on the AMD Ryzen 5 5500U. But before we talk numbers, I just want to say that memberships are now enabled on the channel, so if you would like to support that way, please be sure to check that out. Any support like that is greatly appreciated and it's going to really help out the channel. But anyways, the game is currently running with the lowest in-game graphics preset, and we do have FSR set to the performance preset. Unfortunately, the game launched with FSR 1.0, so it doesn't exactly look amazing, and it also doesn't exactly go extremely low when it comes to the resolution. But as you can see here, running at the full 1080p resolution, FSR does actually help to improve the overall gaming experience, though it's not really anything that I would call incredible or even really doable for a game that is as competitive as this. I'm sure there's people out there that would just get used to playing like this, but at least for me, I felt like this was a overall pretty rough experience, and you can really tell that by just looking at those frame time charts, where we're getting crazy spikes all over the place. Things are not consistent while playing this. But we are running this at just the stock 15 watt TDP, so of course we can raise that up to 25 watts and see if that can actually level out the performance, particularly in those 1% lows. Unfortunately, we really don't see as much of an uplift as I would have liked to have seen here. We are getting a slight improvement in 1% lows, but it's nothing substantial, and it really does not make a noticeable difference when things are just this rough and this inconsistent in general. It does level out some of the more major spikes, but it's not quite there to a level where I would say it's super playable. Again, I think that there are people out there that will be more than fine with playing like this, especially if you're used to playing on integrated graphics. But for a competitive shooter, you just like to squeeze out a little bit more. If we could just get those 1% lows to 30, things would feel noticeably better. But we did at least eliminate some of the more major spikes where the frame times were sometimes spiking up to almost 40 milliseconds. But the spikes are definitely still present there, they're just not as noticeable. It's certainly now to a level where I think a lot of people would feel comfortable playing like this if this is the only option that you have, but depending on what's happening on the screen, it can get pretty rough and overall make the gaming experience feel difficult to do, mostly due to the fact that there will be the occasional spike in lag that can actually bring down the whole experience. But it is something that you could probably adjust to if this is really something you want to play, though it does look really rough with FSR set to performance mode. It's pretty much at a level that I think a lot of people would be having trouble just spotting enemies at a distance, especially because here a lot of the times the enemy kind of just blends into the background at further ranges. But we can also enable another feature that will hopefully improve some of the experience of actually trying to play this. That is the dynamic resolution scaling. This is just running at the full 1080p resolution with FSR on top of that. We can enable dynamic resolution scaling with FSR, and it can bring down the resolution to some incredibly low levels. And we can see what that actually does to the overall performance. And it seems that at the stock 15 watt TDP, it doesn't really do much but make the whole experience extremely rough. Now it's trying to reach a target of 60 and it's not getting there at all. And those 1% lows make the whole experience really rough to try to play. So 15 watts seems to just be extremely limited at this point, and it's not really going to be doable. It's not really too surprising since it's really not letting the GPU go all the way to max speed, because the CPU is actually doing some work here with seeing spikes all the way up to around the 50% usage. And that means that a lot of the power budget that would normally go to the GPU is now just being eaten up by the CPU. So the GPU is just not reaching those high clocks, and it's really bringing down the overall gaming experience. The averages do look pretty solid, but it's those 1% lows that kind of just drag everything down. And of course, visually, it can look pretty rough considering that FSR is already dropping the resolution extremely low, and the dynamic resolution scaling messing with that on top of that just makes everything really rough. But at the 25 watt TDP, things actually start to change here, where now our 1% lows are looking really solid. They're above 30 and our averages are just slightly under 60. It becomes a completely different world in terms of performance, and this is actually really doable. The biggest downside is just that visually the game looks horrendous. Like, it's such a low resolution that it makes looking at anything really difficult to do. There's a lot of shimmering at the edges of pretty much everything. It's just not a smooth sailing experience whatsoever in terms of visuals, but the performance itself is actually really solid. So if you're willing to take this big of a hit in terms of resolution, you can enable both FSR and the dynamic resolution scaling and actually get decent level of performance. Surprising, really, considering that at the 15 watt it was just so bad. I had my expectations the lowest possible for the 25 watt TDP with these settings, and I was actually pleasantly surprised. Now, would I play the game like this? I don't really know if I would do that. The resolution can be really rough, especially if you're trying to shoot at anybody at a distance. It can be very difficult to do, but in close quarters encounters, it's actually pretty doable. Just keep some reasonable expectations. Those numbers might mislead you into thinking that this is going to be completely smooth. Those frame time charts let you know that things are barely keeping a consistent experience here. It's really not going to be anything amazing, but considering that we're on an iGPU on a chip that is at this point pretty old, we're doing pretty great for a brand new title. I just hope that Activision actually ends up updating the game and releasing FSR 2.2 for it, so we could hopefully improve these visuals just a tad bit and actually make this a really nice experience. But I want to thank you for watching. Obviously, memberships are enabled on the channel, so I will see you guys next time.